Hello, folks. How you doing today? So I have been trying to get a second interview with Biggerpockets since I left the workforce back in February of 2018. So what is that, like 18 months, 20 months or so? So I guess I'll keep trying. But in the meantime, I thought what I would do is I thought I would create an interview. It's a parody, right? As you'll see, where I'm going to pretend to both be Josh and Brandon and myself, right? I'm not going to pretend to be myself, but I'm basically going to put some questions out there that I think Brandon and Josh might ask that would make a great interview. And Yeah, what the heck, huh? Why not? Why not pretend? I've done enough interviews. Why don't I kind of try to create an interview that I think Brandon and Josh and the Bigger Pockets community would be proud of? So, in order to do that, I have set up a PowerPoint so you can see the questions, and so can I. So we will go ahead and get this started. All right, so again, I call this a parody. My vocabulary is not all that great. I don't know if that's technically true. I'm basically going to be one individual pretending to be Josh, Brandon, and myself. I'm calling this round two because as you will see in a moment, I actually was interviewed by Josh Dorkin himself back in 2011, and I'll give you the title to that if you'd like to look at it here. But again, I've been trying to be interviewed by Biggerpockets for 20 months now. And I just thought I would take it in my own hands and do the interview myself. Again, my first interview was 8+ years ago, which would put it in 2011. It was done by Josh Dorkin himself. And it was really during the depth of the crash, right? I believe if you go back and listen to the interview, you'll hear about us doing some 1031 exchanges and really, kind of in the throes of the downturn. So it's worth going to check out. Here's the title if you want to search for it. I typed in Bigger Pockets Michael Zuber to find it. That's the actual title. I did not test that, but the title is Interview by Landlord Michael Zuber. Again, I typed in Michael Zuber Bigger Pockets to find it. So in the end, since I wasn't able to get a second interview, I have tried. I thought I would just pretend to be Josh and Brandon and make the interview myself. So let's get started. So first, let's pretend to be Josh. Wow, Michael Zuber, what have you been up to? Been a long time. Josh is a very fun guy. I've spoken with him many times. Actually went to his event uh, back in Denver when it was just a small thing and was a featured speaker. So that was a lot of fun. So again, Josh, thanks, man. You've been doing great things. Can't believe what you and the team have accomplished over the last 8 years at Biggerpockets. Truly amazing. Congratulations, all that. I guess, Josh, to tell you what's been up with me is I continued to be a landlord for another 6 or 7 years. Right, kept doing the one rental at a time story. Obviously we went through the crash and we came out of it and we bought. We've done some seller financing, but really, Josh, it's kind of more of the same, right? If you go back and listen to the old interview, I was a full-time employee. I traveled all over the world. Frankly, I traveled more in these last 8 years than I did the previous 8. So my life only got busier, right? Daughter, grew up, went off to college, now is out on her own. So lots of things going on. And then, lastly, some events occurred in 2018 where I just decided enough was enough, and I left my W-2 job. All of this because of being a buy and hold landlord, right? One rental at a time, built it up. And then the last thing, Josh, kind of sparked by what I've seen you and the Bigger Pockets team do, and yourself, Brandon, as well, is I went off and wrote a book. I called it One Rental at a Time. It really documents the story, Josh, that you and I talked about those first 8 years and what happened since. It's, again, I'm no great writer. I'm nobody like Jay Scott or David Green or any of these other great writers that you have. But I took a shot and I shared my story, and it seems to be getting some good press. And if you want to get your copy, folks, it's on Amazon. You can just look up One Rental at a Time or type in my name, Michael Zuber. All right, Brandon. So here's Brandon. Nice to meet you, Michael. Can you remind me when we communicated in the past? Yeah. Hey, Brandon. Nice to meet you. Congrats on all your success. I see you're in Hawaii. Pretty cool. See you speaking all over the place. So congratulations. Yeah, Brandon. We communicated via email, at least by my memory. I think right after you started with Biggerpockets, and I was a featured blogger at the time, right, where you had bloggers write posts once a week, and I had been doing that for about a year. You came on board. I don't actually know if you've just come on board or you took on new responsibilities. That was never clear to me. But basically, you sent out an email to all the featured bloggers, setting new standards for blogs. And one of the ones that hurt myself was is I like to do series, right? I like to do, the top 10 of this or the top 8 of that. And I would write one blog for each point. And you came in and said, no more series. Given that I was the only individual at the time doing series, I felt like it was a personal attack. I wrote these blogs while I was on airplanes, and I tried to write them all at the same time, so it was the same voice. And I guess I didn't appreciate, those rules and changes when I was, doing all of this for free and trying to grow my own portfolio and try to give back to the community. And it just became too much work, and I just couldn't meet the standards. So we stopped. I stopped blogging after my inventory of posts came out. So that's when we met. I don't know if we communicated via email, maybe just once, maybe it was 2 or 3 times. I don't remember. But basically, you came in and you added some structure, and you were doing the good things for the Biggerpockets community. And clearly, it was all the right things. Just at the time, as a featured blogger, the additional restrictions and requirements was too much for a full-time employee who was already working 10 or 12 hours a day and trying to get back. So that's when we communicated. It's basically when you came in and set up new guidelines for the blogs. So Brandon again asked the question, what are you seeing in the market today that reminds you of the last peak? That's a good question, Brandon. I think a couple of things. First, if you know anything about the last peak, there was a lot of herd mentality going on. And there's definitely a herd mentality today. It's around different asset types. Back in 2006 and 7, the herd was clearly single family homes. It was clearly flipping, right? There were plenty of stories about people buying contracts on lots, and then that contract would be flipped 2 or 3 times before the actual building was done. And that was happening all over the place, right? I knew people flipping 3, 4 contracts inside of a community and making 20 or 30 grand every time. That obviously blew up, right? Kind of like, when the music stopped, whoever held it last lost it. So where I'm seeing the herd today is frankly multifamily, specifically value add multifamily in the Midwest and South. I think there's a lot of danger there. It's a little bit of different danger because the last peak was of financial danger because people were getting liar loans and badly structured loans. Today, they're putting up real equity and getting commercial financing. Unfortunately, they're overpaying. They're not appreciating how hard it is to be a landlord. And when the economy turns, they're going to have vacancies and turns. They're going to lose money. They're going to stay in these syndications for 5 to 10 years longer than they want. They're not going to get their preferred return. I'm trying to help people see that. It's kind of like yelling into a tornado. Nobody hears you. But I have history on my side. I've seen what happens. I frankly run away from the herd. Last peak, I sold my houses, and that was a story that I talked with Josh in our interview. Technically didn't sell. I did an exchange, and we moved our equity out of what the herd wanted because they overpaid, and moved our equity somewhere else. We're doing the same thing today. If I believe the herd is in multifamily, we're going to sell it. Sorry about that, Brandon. But again, we're selling or exchanging because again, when the herd wants to overpay, I'm going to let them. And today they're overpaying for multifamily. I'm clearly sharing this with everyone, but again, I'm one voice that there's a huge tornado and the herd's not hearing me. So definitely going on today is the herd mentality is real. So Josh asks me, is landlording still a feasible outcome for people in financial independence? Absolutely. Uh, I believe being a landlord, I believe the one rental at a time story is the easiest path to a better financial future. I have a quote that I proudly attached to my name is financial independence is hard, but a better financial future is easy. I believe everybody watching this, if you just got 1 to 4 rentals, you put real down payments, you got conservatively fixed rate debt, and you bought wise, right? Meant you learned your market, which I'm sure we'll talk about in future questions. You're going to be well off. Your financial future will be better. And that's really what I spend my time down doing, Josh, is I try to help people have a better financial future. I see all the social media, all the big checks, all this nonsense out there. I've been in the game nearly 20 years. I know it's a lot harder. I know there's taxes. I know there's, uh, carrying costs and hard money costs and all of these things. And I'm gonna keep speaking out and letting people know, that other active income of flipping or wholesaling is not easy as people make it look. So I tell people all the time, keep your job, bust your tail 8 to 6. You can build a nice portfolio rentals off hours in the morning, in the evenings, on the weekends. Um, there were very few people that work more than I did while we were building it, right? I did over 100,000 miles a year on airplanes, was in hotels 100 nights a year, um, was platinum on multiple airlines and all over the world, and still worked 60 to 80 hours while on the ground, and I still build a portfolio, and I think everybody can do it. So yeah, I think landlording is the best way to a better financial future. So Brandon asks, why not focus on apartments, multifamily? Well, Brandon, I think that's a question Grant Cardone would ask me if he could. He would probably make a lot of fun of me because I'm here to tell you that for 15 years of my career, bigger was better. And let's be clear what I mean by better. I meant it produced a better return. That's all I care about. I want to know how hard my cash is working. And for 15 years, bigger was better, meaning get more units, you get one roof, you spread costs and all of those things. Unfortunately, today, Brandon, people are overpaying for multifamily, and they're specifically overpaying for what I call Class C properties. There are still deals out there in apartments, so don't get me wrong, but they are like unicorns with a 4-leaf clover in their mouth, right? They're rare. But every day I turn around and I see somebody telling me about a new unicorn they bought. Maybe. I don't know the deal. I don't know the area. I just know that I've sold apartments for more than they're worth and people paid for them. I sold an apartment for 20% more than I thought, and it needed an immediate $200K in investment. Syndication still bought it. I don't know how they're going to make a return in the first 3 to 5 years, given what they have to put out. But I think there's a lot of fools chasing apartments, and there's just not many out there. And now there's tens of thousands of people looking, and it's a simple supply demand equation. And as I said earlier, I think it was to Josh, I get away when the herd's running. I get out of the way. I will go the opposite direction. I've seen the herd get crushed and bankrupt and lives destroyed, and I don't want to be anywhere around that. So that's why no apartments, Brandon. I think single family homes are a much better investment today. Again, for the first time in 20 years, but it's what I think today. So Josh asks, why'd you stay in Fresno and never go to the Midwest? Well, Josh, kind of like Brandon's question before, in fairness, in 2008, we were looking, right? I think we talked about it in our video. We had looked at Texas and San Antonio and Austin and Dallas. I think we even went out to Houston. And I could never get over the fact, two things. First off, what really prevented us from buying in Texas was property taxes being adjusted every year. I saw back then that if the government could adjust property taxes, they could easily wring out my cash flow every year. And that was really why we said no to Texas, because I saw that coming. And lo and behold, I hear there are people who bought in Texas years ago that are now losing their properties because they've lost all the cash flow because of property taxes. So I could tell you this much. If I had gone to Texas in 2008, I would still be working. I'd still have a dozen or so properties, and I could be on pace to lose them because I only own stuff that cash flows. And, that's why we didn't do Texas. As for why we never went to the Midwest or the South, I think there was a time where that was a home run. I think that was 5 years ago or so. I think a lot of people today looking at out of state are going to be suckers. Again, I talked about the herd mentality twice now. Once with the same between '08 and 19. When you asked me what do I see, I think that was a Brandon question. And then why I didn't do apartments. It's kind of the same reason. Anytime the herd just assumes they can't lose, I'm out. Right? I can't tell you how many people I've heard investing in Detroit and Cleveland. Not that you can't make money there. I just think you have to live there. I think you have to know the neighborhood. I think you have to have the pulse, because if you're one street off, you are messed up. You are going to lose money. So I think those markets are great. You just have to live there, right? You've got to be on the pulse. You've got to know what's coming and what's happening. And I think if you live there, you can crush it. But I think investing out of state because of Google Maps and Excel spreadsheets is a way to go bankrupt. And I'm not going there. So that's why no Midwest and the South, frankly. Are you still buying? Brandon asks. Absolutely. We've added 15 units this year, even though I think we're near the peak. We're always going to be adding, right? We are buy and hold investors. And when we can see a good opportunity to make a conservative bet, we are going to do that. And, we do focus a lot on seller financing today because, again, things are priced richly. But if you give them the price today at market, but you can control the terms, you can still create a good deal. So we have paid full market value for these 15 units, but because of seller financing, we got a low down payment, we got no points, we got all the things that we wanted, so we can still pay retail and get a good deal. So yeah, we are absolutely still buying. I will likely only be buying seller finance deals for the next year or so because I do see the market changing. But yeah, we're absolutely still buying. I'm guessing, Brandon, you're still buying as well. So Josh, what is the number one thing you tell new investors? That's a great question, Josh. And I think the number one question, or the number one thing I tell investors, and I teach this in my course, is you have to learn your market, right? We've been buying throughout these cycles that we write about in our book, right? The up cycle, the down cycle, and the return. But the only thing that allows us to really know what's going on is to look at our market, right? We have to know what the market produces, right? If the market produces a 5% yield on my cash, I only want to do good or great deals, right? So I'm only going to look for 6 and 7%. I think anybody can learn their market. I think it's a skill. It's not like singing or acting where you have to have natural talent. I believe learning a market is something that could be taught. I believe it takes repetition and consistency. I looked at my market, for example, every day for 10 years. And I could tell you what the average market or what's going on in my market at any one time during the last run up, during the crash, during the return. And I know that every investor out there can learn their market. And if you need help doing that, I have a course. The links in the description or below this video. Use the coupon code BOOK20. So you save $20. It's only $179, and you get an autographed copy of this. I think I have like 6 left. I think somebody else just got one this morning. 5 or 6 left. So use that coupon code, save some money, get an autographed book. But yeah, I think investors need to learn their market. They don't need to look at Excel. They need to learn their market. They need to protect themselves. They need to build confidence, and that's what I think they need to do. So Brandon asks, so in your old posts, you reference a process similar to BRRRR, right? Buy, repair, rent, refi, repeat. How'd you stumble across it? Well, Brandon, thank you for that. First off, congratulations on trademarking that or whatever, basically pushing that out there is a good idea. I've seen David Green talk about it. You guys do an excellent job. His book, the BRRRR book is awesome. Really, when I was talking about what we were doing during the crash, we were just recycling capital, which is really the intent of BRRRR. I wasn't smart enough to tag it, wasn't smart enough to call it anything. We were buying stuff for land value, for cash. We were then getting private money. We were then repairing it, renting it, and basically refining the debt. And we just kept going, right? We took the same roughly $50,000 and recycled it dozens of times. during the crash, and it allowed us to really build up a pretty nice portfolio of single-family homes and multi-units. Again, my only goal, as I wrote about and did these deal reviews back in my old posts on Biggerpockets, was recycling capital. I wasn't rich. I didn't have endless capital like some of the folks did. I just had to make that same capital work time and time again. And I really didn't know I was doing early stage burst stuff, but that's kind of funny to look back at now. So Brandon and Josh asked, any last thoughts? I guess a couple of things. First, anybody can do this business. I've interviewed plenty of guests, as both of you have, with very interesting origin stories, ex-cons, young folks, full-time employees, and anybody can do this. Do me a favor, learn your market. Don't chase the herd, conservatively finance. Don't believe the hype. It's not as easy as people make it seem. Follow Biggerpockets, right? The community has only grown since I contributed way back in 2010 and 11. Keep following what Josh and Brandon put out there, as they truly are trying to help. It's pretty amazing to watch. So in the end, if you're still watching this, you enjoyed this interview, please subscribe. Also, if you want to hit up Biggerpockets and tell them they should interview me, that would be awesome. I'd appreciate that. I'd love to talk to Brandon or Josh or David Green or really any of the outstanding interviewers over there. I'd love to see how an actual interview went. I tried to do my best, on this. Hopefully that was fun for you. I had fun. I wish I could have been as humorous as both Josh and Brandon, but I just don't have it like that. So at the end of the day, thank you very much and take care.